My first night in the hammock. Now, I've had my concerns over hammocks, that's why it's taken me such a long time to purchase one. Both kind of personal concerns, how they interact with my individual systems, and just in hammocks in general. Let's go ahead and talk about those and see what my first night was like. This is the Doublenest hammock. Literally just picked this up on the way here, and my son's gonna sleep in this one, I'm gonna sleep in the other one. We'll see how it works tonight. Now we got the Doublenest set up, we're gonna move on to the Warbonnet Blackbird. That really did not take a lot of effort. Pretty intuitive. And as you can see with the Blackbird, I chose to go with the whoopee slings. Well, we're going to bed. Trout there's getting situated. He's in the Doublenest, or whatever it's called, I forget. But he's liking it so far. We'll see what he thinks in the morning. First time in a hammock overnight for him, as well as myself. One of the reasons it's taken me so long to get hammocks is the situation I am in with my kids. When they were a lot younger, we could all fit into one tent, and it was nice just to be around them and make sure that they were taken care of throughout the night if they needed anything, which unfortunately was the case more often than not. But now as they're getting older, they can kind of go off on their own a little bit, so now we've got the hammocks. Another concern of mine was my back. I have a bad back, and I didn't know if a hammock was going to aggravate that more or make it better. I was just a little bit worried about it. I have received a lot of feedback from discussions I've had on my Facebook page that guys who have had back problems actually help their back. And let me tell you, when I woke up in the morning, it's the best my back has ever felt. So after spending one night in the hammock, my back loved it. And overall, it was pretty comfortable. I still think there's a learning curve to be done with optimally placing the hammock, and those things will flesh out over time, but I'm definitely a convert to the hammock. Another aspect I hear a lot is a hammock is so much lighter than a tent. And I started looking into it, and honestly, not by a lot. And again, the situation I was in with my kids, it just didn't make much sense because I had a hammock for one person that was slightly less weight than the tent I was carrying. When you start adding in the straps, the beaners, all that kind of stuff, the hammock actually starts to get up there in weight. So for capability with me and my two kids, it just didn't make a lot of sense at that time. In my solo trips, one thing I've always noticed when sleeping on the ground, especially with an air mattress, is you have to be so careful so that you don't pop the mattress. And there's a lot of effort that goes into clearing a spot and finding a spot. And I can't tell you how many times I've thought to myself, boy, if I only had a hammock out here, that would solve all my problems. This is a good case right now. The area we're in, it's relatively flat, but it's got a lot of big rocks on it. So it'll be hard to find a flat spot. With the hammock, some good trees around, not an issue. The two tarps that we're using are the tarps you guys have seen on camera many times before. They're very cheap and very inexpensive tarps. I think both of them were around the $8 mark. I think 8x10s, both of them, and they work just fine. They don't pack down very tight, and they're relatively heavy compared to some of the nicer tarps you can get out there. Now I may be doing that in the future, but for now, as I'm just piecing this hammock together, I'll continue to use those, and we'll go from there. One thing about these tarps is really they're quite easy to set up. Yeah, there's a little bit of learning curve, make sure you know kind of what goes where, but if you watch a couple videos before you come out, at least my experience was, they were relatively easy to put up. The challenge I had was just making sure that I got the right distance in height on the trees for your strap, and then also just the distance apart to make sure. That's pretty easy stuff. That'll come in time if we're doing it more and more, so nothing to be worried about there. But I think a lot of people get intimidated of how to set up a hammock, and I'll tell you, at least my experience the first time was really quite easy. Other discussions that I've had via Facebook, and thank you guys for that because it really helped flesh out a lot of ideas, but I am a side sleeper and stomach sleeper. So how is that going to translate into tarp sleeping? Because generally you're kind of on your back, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't notice it at all. There was a little bit in that bow, it kind of, my feet, it pushed my feet up, and sometimes I could feel that pressure in my knees overnight. But again, I think that has to do with more the setup of the tarp and getting it optimally set up than it did the tarp itself. That was just my experience, and I think part of the learning curve. Here's the Doublenest in there. We just put a pad underneath. My son, one of those closed cell foam pads, very inexpensive at Wally World, and I did pick these up. Again, we just bought this right before we came. These happened to be handy. I grabbed them and said, well, let's just try them out. I can't remember what they are exactly, but they do allow you to make adjustments. These came with the tarp setup, little carabiners. So just real quick, that seemed to work well. You can see them wrapped around the tree there. And just my normal tarp setup up top. Here's the Blackbird setup. I got a pretty nice system going on here. Again, via the Facebook discussions and recommendations, so again, appreciate it much. There's a tree straps. There's a carabiner. I had that one laying around the house, and I'm using it. I would not recommend that one, but they work until I can get something better. Here are the whoopee slings. I would highly, highly recommend whoopee slings. Love those things. And then here's what we're looking like underneath. So here's inside the tarp. This Warbonnet I actually got with the layer, so you can put a pad underneath and it helps keep it in place. And then I just used my sleeping bag as more of a blanket than I did an actual sleeping bag, again upon recommendations, and that actually worked quite well. Temperature out here has been very mild, although this morning it's been extremely wet, but last night I actually got a little bit hot, and this morning it cooled off a bit, but nothing that just pulling the bag up over my head didn't fix. So after my first time doing the hammock thing, I'll tell you guys, I love it. I can't wait to go again. This is a short trip, so we got to get out of here, but definitely glad I finally took the plunge on this thing, because it by far has been the most comfortable night I've ever had out here. And I think it'll just get better as I learn how to tweak that hammock just a hair, just to get it perfect. Again, best night's sleep I've had. Woke up, my back was great. If you're on the fence about getting a hammock, and you're, should I or shouldn't I, based on my first night out here in the rain, I'd say do it. Thanks much, guys. Appreciate you watching. Be sure to hit that like button if you liked the video. Subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you later.